Okay, so continuing on. This oracle came in the year King Ahaz died. This is the only oracle in this section that gets a date. Do not rejoice. I'm assuming it's because the context of King Ahaz's death is what occasioned this oracle, but I don't really know for sure. Do not rejoice, all you Philistines, that the rod that struck you was broken. From the root of that snake will spring up a viper. Its fruit will be a darting, venomous serpent. The poorest of the poor will find pasture, and the needy will lie down in safety. But your root I will destroy by famine. It will slay your survivors. Wail, O gate! Howl, O city! Melt away, all you Philistines! A cloud of smoke comes from the north, and there is not a straggler in its ranks. What answer shall be given to the envoys of that nation? The Lord has established Zion, and in her his afflicted people will find refuge. I can't tell you exactly what this means. The fact that the year of the oracle is given as the year King Ahaz died seems to me to indicate that King Ahaz's death is the occasion that brought about this oracle. Like there's a connection between. I don't know if King Ahaz himself is the rod that's spoken of here, the rod that struck you. I don't know. Philistia was engaged in rebellion against Assyria. In fact, one of the things that goes on is that in Hezekiah's day, Hezekiah, of course, the king of after Ahaz, so after Ahaz is dead, Hezekiah becomes king, is that Assyria comes down to Philistia to quash a rebellion, and the ruler, one of the rulers, I think of Ashdod, flees Philistia and goes to Jerusalem, and then Hezekiah ends up having to give that guy back to Assyria at some point later on. There's something to do with that. Like somehow or another, Isaiah's prophecy here has to do with Assyria's upcoming sacking of Philistia, which is occasioned probably by the death of Ahaz, because Ahaz was a vassal of Assyria, and Hezekiah will try not to be. So, but this is one of those things, like I said, where these prophecies are hard. These prophecies were given in a certain cultural context at a certain point in time, over 2,700 years ago, and it's difficult to state definitively what Isaiah is talking about because we just don't. Okay, we have some records of what happened 2,700 years ago, but it's hard to say for sure what exactly Isaiah is talking about here in terms of events that occurred so long ago. An oracle concerning Moab. Now remember, Moab was a relative of Israel. Philistia was not, Babylon was not, Assyria was not. But Moab was a relative of Israel. Moab came from the offspring of Lot and his daughters. And Lot, of course, was the nephew of Abraham. So Moab are kinsmen of Israel. And that explains the somewhat different attitude that the prophet is going to have against Moab here, compared to what we saw him express towards Philistia or Babylon or Assyria already. He's going to be more sympathetic to Moab than those other nations because they're kinsmen. So, an oracle concerning Moab. Ar in Moab is ruined, destroyed in a night. Kir in Moab is ruined, destroyed in a night. These are obviously cities in Moab. I can't tell you a whole lot more than that. These are locations in Moab. If you lived in Moab and you're familiar with Moab, this would make more sense to you. This would mean more to you. I didn't then, I don't now. So this doesn't mean a lot to me. All I can do is tell you these are just locations in Moab. Dibon goes up to its temple, to its high places, to weep. Moab wails over Nebo and Medeba. Every head is shaved, and every beard cut off. Those are signs of mourning. You don't shave your head or cut your beard without a good reason in this culture. In this case, it's deep mourning. In the streets, they wear sackcloth, on the roofs and in public squares. They all wail, prostrate with weeping. Heshbon and Eliah cry out. Their voices are heard all the way to Jahaz. Therefore, the armed men of Moab cry out, and their hearts are faint. My heart, Isaiah speaking here personally, my heart cries out over Moab. Her fugitives flee as far as Zoar, as far as Eglath-Shelishiah. Again, these are places, I know, these are places that this means something to Isaiah. It means something to his hearers. It doesn't mean much to me other than that these are just places in Moab. They go up the way to Luhith, weeping as they go. On the road to Horonaim, they lament their destruction. The waters of Nimrim are dried up, and the grass is withered. The vegetation is gone, and nothing green is left. There are too many people for this small oasis, so their presence there eventually makes it go dry. So the wealth they have acquired and stored up, they carry away over the ravine of the poplars. Their outcry echoes along the border of Moab. Their wailing reaches as far as Eglaim. Their lamentation as far as Beer Elim. Dimon's waters are full of blood. And I will bring still more upon Dimon. Dimon, by the way, sounds like the Hebrew for blood. There's a pun here. The Hebrew language has a sense of humor in it. The Hebrew Bible, I should say, has it. When we read the Bible, very rarely do we get anything even remotely resembling a sense of humor in it. Part of this is because the Bible generally is very serious in its tone. There is not a lot of humor in the Bible. But also a good portion of it is that the humor that is in the Bible is largely linguistic in nature, word plays and puns, which of course that's all in Hebrew. So that means nothing when translated to English. In this case, there's a pun here. Dimon sounds like the Hebrew for blood, so the Dimon's waters are full of blood. But I will bring still more upon Dimon. I guess it's God speaking here now. A lion upon the fugitives of Moab, upon those who remain in the land. See, the survivors are going to be chased by lions. They're still not done with their suffering and torment. Send lambs as tribute to the ruler of the land, from Selah across the desert to the mount of the daughter of Zion. Like flustering birds pushed from the nest, so are the women of Moab at the fords of the ark. So the women have escaped. So they're trying to get away before they're taken captive as prisoners of war, spoils in battle. And they're trying to push through the fords of the Arnon, which is the border of Moab, by the way. We read about that way back in Numbers, even, when the Israelites came to the land and had to fight even to get to the river, the Arnon Gorge. So this is the border of Moab here. They're trying to get to Judah and Jerusalem to take safety and shelter. Because again, remember, they're kinsmen. They're fundamentally kinsmen with the Israelites. In fact, Ruth, the Moabite woman, who was a descendant of David. You know, there's even Moabite blood in David's lineage. So they have a connection. So after Moab's destruction, I don't know who is doing this to Moab. We haven't identified this yet, where this destruction is coming from. But the survivors, who seem to be mainly women, are trying to get to Zion, Jerusalem, to take shelter and refuge. Give us counsel. Render a decision. Make your shadow like night at high noon. Hide the fugitives. Do not betray the refugees. Let the Moabite fugitives stay with you. Be their shelter from their destroyer. So they're asking the people of Jerusalem to protect them. The oppressor will come to an end. Remember, the Moabites were the ones who participated in the seduction of Israel as they were in their camp waiting to go into the land in Numbers. They have a long history with these people, and it isn't a good one. But now the Moabites are trying to take refuge with the survivors, at least, and trying to take refuge in Jerusalem. The oppressor will come to an end, and destruction will cease. The aggressor will vanish from the land. I'm not sure who this aggressor is. We haven't really identified this yet. In love, a throne will be established. In faithfulness, a man will sit on it. One from the house of David. So there's that prophecy again. We've already heard about this child ruler to come. Now we're hearing about it again, a man from the house of David. And this is in the context of a prophecy given about Moab, who, by the way, David had, like I said, Moabite blood in him, in his background. One who, in judging, seeks justice and speeds the cause of righteousness. We have heard of Moab's pride, her overwhelming pride and conceit, her pride and her insolence, but her boasts are empty. Therefore the Moabites wail. They'll wail together from us. All their pride and all their arrogance couldn't save them from whatever destruction they encountered. Lament and grieve for the men of Kir Haresoth. The fields of Heshbon wither, the vines of Sibmah also. The rulers of the nations have trampled down the choicest vines, which once reached Jazer and spread towards the deserts. So the rulers of the nations. I don't know who did this exactly, but someone did. Their shoots spread out and went as far as the sea. So I weep, Isaiah I think is speaking here personally, as Jazer weeps, to the vines of Sibmah. O Heshbon, O Elilah, I drench you with tears. The shouts of joy over your ripened fruit and over your harvests have been stilled. Joy and gladness are taken away from the orchards. No one sings or shouts at the vineyards. No one treads out wine at the presses, for I have put an end to the shouting. Now I think is referring to God. I have put an end to the shouting. My heart, and I don't know if this is God or Isaiah speaking here, I'm not sure, laments for Moab like a harp. My inmost being for Kir Haresoth. When Moab appears at her high place, so to worship her false gods, she only wears herself out. When she goes to her shrine to pray, again to her idols and false gods, it is to no avail. This is the word the Lord has already spoken concerning Moab. So he got this prophecy sometime before. Now the Lord says, so sometime later he gave an update to this prophecy. Within 3 years, as a servant bound by contract would count them, Moab's splendor and all her many people will be despised, and her survivors will be very few and feeble. So the rest of the prophecy was given at some earlier points in time. And then later on, God came back to Isaiah and gave him an update and said it's going to happen within 3 years. As a servant bound by contract counts years. I don't know when that is or what that's referring to. It seems pretty clearly to be referring to some specific event. But I don't know what event that could be. Okay, I'm going to go... let's go ahead and start a new video. I need to kind of start making these shorter rather than longer so that they're easier to get through and sit through.